Welcome to Spicy Ladies. Just because you carry it well doesn't mean it isn't heavy. If you're a Sigma female, chances are you felt this strange kind of tiredness. It's not just physical exhaustion. It's that deep soul level fatigue that doesn't go away after a nap or a weekend off. You know how to handle things. You always have. You carry your silence like armor and your independence like a shield. People see you as strong, unbothered, grounded. But what they don't see is the quiet war happening inside you. This exhaustion you feel isn't because you're weak. It's because you're constantly operating in a world that doesn't understand how you move. You think deeply, you feel in silence, and you rarely ask for help. Not because you're too proud, but because you've learned the hard way that help often comes with conditions. You're drained because you live by your own rules in a world that's always trying to rewrite them. You don't perform. You don't pretend, and you don't follow noise. And that takes energy most people will never understand. So here's your reminder. You're not failing. You're not lost. You're simply at the edge of a deep inner shift. You've outgrown surface level goals and empty conversations. This heaviness, it's not the end. It's a sign that you're ready to shed what's fake and hold on to what's real. Don't rush yourself. Your strength isn't loud, but it is unshakable. And even in your most tired moments, you are still building something rare, yourself. Spicy ladies. 1. You're emotionally multilingual, but no one speaks your native language. This is the silent battle so many Sigma females fight every single day. You're someone who can walk into any situation and immediately feel the emotional temperature. You notice the small shifts in tone, the micro expressions, the slight pause before someone speaks. You can sense tension before it's even been named. You're tuned in not just to what people say, but to what they don't. You feel what others can't put into words and carry what they don't even realize they've passed on to you. You know how to respond without reacting. You listen in ways most people never will. You comfort without needing to be asked. You absorb without showing it. That's your strength, your emotional fluency. You speak many languages of empathy, restraint, observation, depth. But the painful truth is when it's your turn to speak, to be understood, to feel seen, you're met with confusion or blank stares. You're told you're too deep, too quiet, too hard to figure out. So you stop trying, you stop explaining, and that silence isn't emptiness. It's protection. Being emotionally multilingual means you live in a world where you're always translating, always adapting, always managing other people's emotional mess. But when you finally express your own truth, it feels like speaking into a void. No echo, no reflection, just quiet. It's lonely, but it's also powerful because your emotional depth isn't a curse. It's your edge. It's what lets you lead without shouting, heal without preaching, move through chaos without drowning in it. Just because others don't speak your language doesn't mean your voice is wrong. It means you're rare. And rare things are often misunderstood. Keep speaking in your truth. Someone out there is listening. And when they do, it will be worth all the silence you've carried till now. Right now, if you are still watching, I hope this video can help you. Your comments motivate me so much, so I can make more videos which you like. So hit that subscribe button and leave me a message. Let's continue. 2. You don't fear burnout, you normalize it. This is the uncomfortable truth for many Sigma females. Burnout doesn't come as a surprise anymore. It's not a warning sign. It's a familiar rhythm. You've been carrying so much for so long that feeling drained just feels normal. You're not the type to collapse or cry out for help. You push through. You smile with tired eyes. You get it done anyway. Some people break down when they're exhausted. You adapt. You reorganize your schedule, suppress how heavy it feels, and keep moving. Not because it's easy, but because you've done it for so long, it feels like the only way you know how to live. The idea of resting almost feels foreign, even guilty. What are you supposed to do with silence, with stillness, with space that isn't filled with some task or some emotional weight? That's what happens when survival mode becomes your normal. You stop questioning it. You stop labeling it as stress or fatigue. It's just life now. And what's worse, nobody notices because you function so well under pressure that they assume you're fine. They see you're calm, and mistake it for balance, not realizing it's the calm of someone who had no choice but to become unshakable. You've trained yourself to carry what breaks most people. And while that's powerful, it's also dangerous because there's a cost. A cost to always being the strong one. A cost to living in constant overdrive. And that cost is yourself. It's time to realize that survival is not the same as living. Being capable doesn't mean you should always have to be. You deserve more than just holding it all together. You deserve to feel safe enough to let go. Exhaustion is not your home. It's just where you've been for too long and you're allowed to leave. 3. You process your pain in private and celebrate others in public. This is the quiet reality of a Sigma female. You're the type who shows up for everyone. You cheer others on, support their wins, and give without expecting anything in return. People look at you as dependable, composed, always ready with a kind word or a solution. What they don't see is what happens when the doors close. They don't see the way you break quietly, how you sit with your pain alone, replaying conversations, carrying disappointments that no one else even notices. You've mastered the art of clapping for others while you bleed in silence. You build people up with words you wish someone would say to you. You help them believe in themselves while silently questioning if anyone really sees you. The irony is brutal. You're the one holding the spotlight for everyone else. Even when your own light is flickering, you tell yourself, this is what strong women do. They give. They endure. They rise and stay steady. But there's a difference between being strong and being self-sacrificing. And sometimes in all that giving, you lose touch with your own voice, your own needs, your own spirit. This habit of pouring from an empty cup comes with a price. And that price is you, your energy, your joy, your sense of being poured into. You don't need loud recognition or public praise, but you do need care. Real care. The kind that doesn't ask you to earn it. You've convinced yourself that silence is strength, that emotional independence is a badge of honor. But even the strongest women need to be seen, not admired for their strength, but understood for their humanity. You're not weak for needing rest. You're not selfish for wanting something back. You're just human. And even the rarest souls deserve refilling. For you're battling the invisible, the exhaustion of performing calm. This is a different kind of tired. It's not from overwork or lack of sleep. It's from pretending to be okay when you're anything. But you've become so skilled at looking composed that people assume you're unshakable. They look at your calm face, your steady voice, your thoughtful responses, and think she's got it all together. But what they don't see is the storm inside. The overthinking, the doubts, the emotional weight that builds up behind your quiet eyes. You've trained yourself to stay level no matter what. You don't snap. You don't panic. You don't fall apart in public. You've mastered the art of silence, of holding yourself together when you're unraveling inside. And honestly, that performance takes more out of you than anyone could guess. Holding calm on the outside while your inner world spins in circles is like carrying a heavy suitcase with a smile on your face. Just because you're not complaining doesn't mean you're not tired. Just because you look centered doesn't mean you're not struggling to keep yourself from breaking down. The problem is the better you get at appearing calm, the less likely anyone is to ask how you really are. They come to you for stability, not realizing you're barely holding yourself upright. You become the strong one, the one people lean on. But where do you go when you're the one who needs support? The truth is this invisible battle wears down your spirit. It disconnects you from yourself, because when you're constantly performing peace, you forget what it feels like to actually have it. Let this be your reminder. You don't have to fake balance just to be worthy of rest. You don't have to carry calm when your soul is screaming for release. You're allowed to fall apart. You're allowed to feel. You don't owe anyone an image. What you owe yourself is honesty and space to heal without a mask. 5. You're carrying emotional weight that isn't yours. People don't even ask anymore. They just hand you their mess, their fears, their drama, their guilt. And because you've always been the one who keeps it together, they assume you'll handle it. No questions, no consideration, just the silent expectation that you'll pick up the emotional slack. You become the listener, the fixer, the one who makes people feel lighter, while you walk away feeling heavier. It's not always obvious. It's subtle. You notice someone's energy shift and you adjust your tone to make them feel safe. You take on their anxiety just so the room feels more stable. You play therapist when you never signed up for the job. You get wrapped up in problems you didn't cause, but now somehow feel responsible for all because people know you're emotionally intelligent, steady, and hard to shake. But here's what they never stop to ask. What is all this doing to you? How much of your mental space is being swallowed by other people's chaos? How many nights have you spent overthinking someone else's situation while yours goes untouched? How often do you feel drained and disconnected, not from your own life, but from absorbing too much of everyone else's? The truth is, you've been everyone's safe space, but you've forgotten how to protect your own. And that emotional landfill, it gets full. It starts to leak. You carry resentment, exhaustion, a quiet bitterness that builds with every unreciprocated effort. You don't have to be the emotional storage unit for everyone who refuses to deal with their own baggage. You're allowed to set it down. You're allowed to say no. And most importantly, you're allowed to feel light again. Because just being capable doesn't mean you should always carry it. Sometimes strength looks like walking away from weight that was never yours to hold. 6. You constantly translate your inner world into something palatable for others. This is one of the quietest forms of emotional exhaustion and one of the most misunderstood. As a Sigma female, your mind doesn't live on the surface. You feel deeply, think in layers, and experience life with an intensity that most people just don't operate on. But instead of being able to express that freely, you find yourself constantly editing, constantly shrinking complex thoughts into bite-sized phrases, constantly softening the edges of your truth so it doesn't make others uncomfortable. It's like you're fluent in a language that few people speak. So you're always translating, always rephrasing, always simplifying, not because you lack clarity, but because you know most people can't handle the full version of you. And that kind of self-containment, it chips away at your energy, your spirit, your authenticity. You water down your insights so they don't sound too intense. You downplay your pain because people prefer the version of you that smiles and says, "I'm fine." You avoid expressing the raw truth of what you feel because you've learned that honesty makes people shift in their seats. You've become so good at adjusting that it's easy to forget what your unfiltered voice even sounds like. But here's the thing. Your depth is not a burden. It's a gift. And simplifying yourself just to be understood is not the solution. It's slow self-eraser. The real you is not too much. The real you is simply rare. And yes, not everyone will get it. But that doesn't mean you should shrink. Let your thoughts stay big. Let your feelings stay sharp. You don't owe anyone a watered-down version of yourself. You were not meant to be easy to digest. You were meant to be real. And that alone is powerful beyond words. 7. You rarely ask for help because you don't trust how people show up. It's not that you don't need help. It's that you've been burned too many times by people who said they'd be there and didn't show up. People who offered support with strings attached. People who gave the bare minimum, then expected endless gratitude in return. So over time, you stop reaching out. You learn to rely on yourself. Not because you wanted to do everything alone, but because trusting others started to feel like handing over a loaded weapon. When you do ask on those rare occasions when the weight gets too heavy and you finally let your guard down, what you often get is silence, delay, or emotional absenteeism. They show up half-hearted, distracted, or not at all. And with every letdown, your belief hardens. I knew I shouldn't have asked. So now you keep your struggles tucked away. You figure things out on your own. You cry in private, bend in your head, and patch yourself up quietly. You've become your own safety net, your own backup plan, your own healer. And that's powerful, but it's also lonely. Because no matter how strong you are, there's a part of you that aches to be supported, to be held, to not always have to be the one holding everything together. But here's the real danger. Isolation starts to feel safer than connection. And slowly that protective wall turns into a cage. You smile on the outside, function like everything's fine, but deep down your spirit feels worn out from carrying so much alone. You are not wrong for being cautious, but you deserve more than half love and unreliable hands. Just because you can survive alone doesn't mean you should have to. Real help exists. Real care exists. And one day you'll see that asking doesn't make you weak. It makes you honest. And honesty, even in your most vulnerable moment, is still your greatest strength. 8. You analyze everything, including your own exhaustion. When you're tired, you don't just rest. You investigate. You start asking yourself questions most people would never even consider. Why am I this tired? What triggered it? Is it mental, emotional, physical? Am I doing something wrong? How do I fix it? You turn your own burnout into a problem that needs solving instead of a signal that you need to simply stop. And that's the thing. You don't know how to just be. You don't allow yourself to feel tired without trying to make it productive. Even your rest has to serve a purpose. You're constantly in your head running diagnostics, tracing patterns, and looking for answers that will somehow make the fatigue feel more valid. But the truth is this overanalysis is part of why you're so tired in the first place. You don't just experience exhaustion. You turn it into a full-blown project. Your mind never clocks out. You're thinking through every detail, reading between the lines, trying to stay one step ahead of life at all times. And while that mental sharpness is a gift, it's also a curse when it keeps you in a constant state of overdrive. Instead of letting yourself rest fully, you stay stuck in the loop of trying to optimize your way out of feeling human. But no amount of logic can solve what only stillness can heal. You're not a machine. You don't need to justify your need for a break. Sometimes you're just tired, not because you failed, not because you're broken, but because your mind is carrying too many tabs open and your soul needs space to breathe. Let that be okay. Not everything needs a solution. Some things just need rest. And peace isn't found through analysis. It's found in allowing yourself to simply be. 9. You're exhausted from being the exception. You never asked to be different. It just turned out that your values didn't match the noise around you. While others chase attention, you chase truth. While they follow trends, you follow your own rhythm. You see through things most people never even question. And while that makes you rare, it also makes you tired. Because being the exception sounds powerful, but it comes with a cost. You're constantly explaining yourself, constantly setting boundaries that others don't even have to think about. You're always choosing the road that makes sense to you, even when no one else understands it. And that level of mental independence, it's beautiful, but it's heavy. You live in a world that moves fast, talks loud, and rewards conformity. But your pace is different. You're not slow. You're intentional. You don't chase what looks good. You move toward what feels right. And every time you go against the current, you spend energy. Energy navigating misunderstandings. Energy standing your ground. Energy reminding yourself that it's okay to walk alone. This isn't about ego or pride. It's about the wear and tear of constantly operating outside the system, of being in rooms where no one thinks like you do, of saying no to what everyone else blindly accepts. It takes discipline. It takes emotional endurance. And yes, it takes a toll. You're not imagining the exhaustion. It's real. You're carrying the mental load of never quite fitting, never quite following, never quite being mirrored. But here's the truth. Being the exception means you're living with intention, not imitation. And while that road may drain you at times, it also frees you. So rest when you need to breathe. Re-enter, but don't trade your difference for their comfort. The path you're on may be quiet, but it leads somewhere real, and that's worth every ounce of energy you give to stay on it. 10. You've mastered self-reliance, but it costs you emotional connection. You can handle things. That's not up for debate. You plan, you protect, you provide for yourself mentally, emotionally, even spiritually. People admire your strength, your composure, your ability to walk through fire and not ask for a single drop of help. But there's a hidden cost behind all that control. And it's starting to show up as a quiet emptiness you can't shake. You've built a life where you don't need anyone. But now you're starting to realize you miss being truly seen. You've learned how to carry your own weight so well that letting someone else share it almost feels unnatural. When someone asks how you're doing, you default to "I'm good." Not because it's true, but because you don't even know how to open the door anymore. This kind of loneliness is tricky because from the outside, everything looks great. You're functioning. You're thriving on paper. You're respected, reliable, put together. But inside there's a longing for something deeper. Not noise, not attention, just presence. Someone who sees past the surface. Someone who doesn't need you to fall apart to realize you've been hurting. The truth is, you became so self-sufficient because you had to be. At some point, life taught you that depending on others was risky. And so you built walls that looked like confidence and independence. But now those same walls are keeping love out. Being in control doesn't mean you're whole. And emotional connection doesn't make you weak. You can be strong and open, self-reliant and supported. You don't have to keep choosing between safety and intimacy. That emptiness you feel, it's not a flaw. It's just the part of you that still wants to be held. And you're allowed to want that. Even the most capable women need to be cared for, not just admired.